especially if people are asking what is Ash'ari, because you have to define everything. Ash'ari is a school of Islamic thought pertaining to how to respond to philosophers and atheists and other people who try to find fault in Islam, in our Aqida.
Yeah.
So some scholars came up and they started answering them in a certain manner.
Yeah.
All right. Trying to rely upon the book and the Sunnah as the source and defend it. Yeah. That madhab was founded by Abu al-Hasan al-Ash'ari. He's the first one to do that in that manner. And so it became called the Ash'ari Aqida. There was another called Abu Mansur al-Maturidi, and it became called the Maturidi Aqida. The Hanafis follow that. The Malikis and Shafi'is loved the Ash'ari Aqida. They followed that. And the Hanbalis chose to abstain from such debates. Okay? And hence abstinence from such debates is the hallmark of the Hanbali creed.
Yeah.
All right. Now,
which is embedded in the fiqh.
Which is embedded in their fiqh, and it is essentially now unified in one. So, tell us now, why is he telling us to ask him about Ash'aris in Saudi?
So he was shocked too. So it's pretty shocking because sometimes we only get to see what is published on internet, but there's a very big group of Saudis who don't adhere to the Salafi way of even creed, the Wahhabi creed. They don't adhere to that. And they usually congregate in pockets. And one of the biggest pockets of such scholars, where you will find the Maliki scholars and you will find the Shafi'i scholars and you will find the Hanafi scholars, is in a city called Ahsaa. That's where I studied.
Really?
Yeah.
SubhanAllah. How did you get there?
We were having a conference on fiqh, and we came across this Sheikh, Dr. Abdullah Al-Arfaj. I don't know if you've ever heard of him.
I've heard the name, of course, yeah.
Yes, he has written this book. You have to read this book. It's called Mafhum al-Bid'ah. It's a 400-page treatise of how we went wrong in bid'ah.
SubhanAllah. SubhanAllah.
You have to read it. I'll see if I can get a copy out to you. So Mafhum al-Bid'ah is phenomenal. So we were just having conversations, and he's like, why don't you come down? So subhanAllah, we took a trip down one weekend, and there goes our 3 to 4 years of driving every weekend to Ahsaa and studying from the mashayikh over there. And they are nothing but masters of Shafi'i fiqh, Ash'ari Aqida, Lugha, all the things, the tradition. And you would they celebrate Mawlid. Obviously, they have a little bit more conservative version of that, so they don't do the maqam. They won't do that. But other than that, it's like they read Barzanji. They have anashid. They refrain from daf. But because they've been influenced by that, and they don't want any flags to go up because they're in a very hostile environment, so they have to be careful about that. But it was shocking to see people so deeply in love with Rasulullah and his way. And what's also really interesting was that you would go there, and adhan, because it's according to the government, takes place at the time of whatever the regular time of dhuhr, but the iqama takes place later for the Hanafis. So there are masajids, they say this is a Hanafi masjid, and we will do the adhan at the same time, but because the imam is Hanafi, then they pray later. So you have so much, you enjoy that you can actually miss the jama'ah here, and you know that in 45 minutes they will be praying, and it's you don't imagine that something like that exists ever in Saudi.
So let me ask you this question. You were already in Saudi doing what there?
Yeah, that's a full story. So I wanted to go to Medina University and all of these. I was like, yes, I'm gonna be like that next student. And then you realize when you get there that 25 is the age limit. In most of these places, which is ajib, which is like past 25 you cannot go to Jamia. And then I said, okay, well, gotta make the most because I've moved my family and everyone here. So let's now figure out what we can do. And subhanAllah, I started studying with various different scholars until we ran into Sheikh Abdullah. And again, I came from that age where or from that ideology where I tell the Sheikh, I said, I only follow hadith. Like, you got to be.
SubhanAllah.
If you don't know, So the Sheikh is like, look, anta rajul aqil. You're an intellectual person. You came from Canada. You have a degree from. Why don't you give it a shot? And if things don't make sense to you after 3 months, then don't do it. But what's the harm in actually understanding?
Yeah.
So I said, yeah, you're right. I see I'm a very. He stroked my ego. He's like, let's play with you.
Yeah.
And then subhanAllah, I still remember in the dars, I was like, what's the dalil for this? What's the dalil for that? and he had so much patience with me in that 3 months until
It
I
would
said, I was like, man, there's no way this is the wrong way.
it would make sense that no people know how to handle and to interact with the people who say no madhab, I take straight from the Quran and the Hadith only. Than them. Now let's say you're a beginner listener and you don't know what we're saying. When you eat food, let me give you an example. When you eat food, right? Nobody goes out to eat dinner by saying, let's go to the woods, right? And let's hunt.
Bismillah.
Right? No one would do that because you don't know what food is healthy for you to eat, what is not. Right? You don't know what berry to pick and what you can't. So you need somebody to help you do that. Okay. Secondly, the speech of Allah and His Messenger is explicit, and it is also equivocal. Equivocal means it's one word, one line, one sentence, but it may mean two meanings. The speech of Allah also includes intentional silence. Allah and His messengers, the Prophet ﷺ said, Allah is silent upon matters on purpose, as a mercy for you. So who then, and the speech of Allah is also mutashabih. It may be an expression of some sort that seems to contradict something above it. An explicit verse. So the explicit verses and hadiths, no one needs a scholar for it. You don't need us to be a scholar in Islam or to be even a student in Islam to know that God is one. It's all over the Quran. To know that alcohol is forbidden. It's all over the Muslim society like that, right? Everyone knows that.
You have to pray zakat.
You have to pray, have to give zakat.
Al-ma'lumu min ad-darura.
Yes. So he gave us that knowledge, very crystal clear. You don't need scholarship for this. But what about the verses that could have two meanings, three meanings, four meanings? What about 100%. The verses or the matters in which Allah and His Messenger were silent upon? What about the mutashabih? It seems to contradict something above it. So in that case, we need scholarship.
100%.
And so that's what our guest is saying that he was in a mode where I want the proof directly from the book. We're saying, okay, but it can be, you need to learn methodologies first of how to extract that. Okay.
100%.
And so that's where you did in the city of Al-Hasa. So you worked and you studied on the side.
Yes. Yeah. So I got a job, and then the job was not very taxing. So I spent almost 10 years just, surviving.
10 years, mashallah, amazing.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
In the Middle East. And then after that, I found another sheikh from India, from Jamia Nouriya, and that's where I did my whole, Alamiya program, the typical Indian or subcontinent program, but in the Shafi'i madhab. So
did you do that part-time?
I did it. I was doing it part-time, but I was taking a full-time course load. So I had a job and then studied with the sheikh every single morning before I would go to work. I would pick up the sheikh. I would do classes for 3 hours, then drop with the sheikh back, go to work, come back, sleep, wake up, pick up the sheikh, do the second class, right? And then I tell this
physically in person.
Yes, in person. Yeah, in person.
Okay.
While I had a family and I had, children and everything. And I tell people, I said, look, it's doable if you really think somehow miraculously you're going to go to Saudi Arabia and you're going to become someone, or you're going to go to Egypt and if you haven't benefited from the scholars that exist in your own city, there's no guarantee that you're going to go there and all of a sudden you're going to become so beneficial. Right? Because I know so many people that go there, just eat burgers and they get KFC fries and they're like, oh my God, this is life.
Yep.
And they never come back.
Let me tell you something that's very important for the listeners here. To be a student of knowledge, you need three things. You need to decide what you're going to follow and study. You need to have a curriculum for that. You don't set the curriculum. They'll tell you. Like Aqidah, you study Tahawi. So I decided I'm going to study Ash'ari Aqidah. The first book is Tahawi. Next, you need consistency. So let's hypothetically say for the regular person out there, I don't have a sheikh. I don't have a school. All right. You take a playlist or you register for a course, but you have to set for yourself a schedule. That schedule can be as small as 15 minutes a day.
But consistent. Got to do it every day.
But you got to be consistent. You will not believe what happens to you at the end of the year. You just won't believe it. Right? You won't believe what happens to you at the end of the year.
I couldn't echo that, further. I think we're living in this instant gratification mode where we want to get the quick knowledge. Like, you were teaching the Shama'il, and like we teach Shama'il, and I don't know what extent you're going, but like we've been teaching Shama'il, and I think we're on like chapter number 4. في صفة ترجل شعر النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, and it took us 6 months to get there.
SubhanAllah.
Once a week, 30 minutes, each and every little thing, like and you gotta drill it into the people that all the sifat of the sha'r of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam can be described as the word walij, wafra limma jum'ah, and then you can describe different lengths, but then you have to conceptualize it. And then some people are like, no, Sheikh, can we just like read the hadith? Can we just like skim through it? But no, there's so many benefits of all of these hadiths. Sometimes it's like it talks about Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqqas and the Arsh of Rahman was shaken. Why is that hadith mentioned? There's a lot to learn for us. It's not just randomly that Imam Tirmidhi just decided that he's going to put this hadith there. There's a very sequential thing that there. And then also this whole tangent that people have, we can't teach Shama'il because there's a da'if hadith in it.
SubhanAllah.
They need some...
Yeah, you need to smack it around. You shouldn't be talking about something that has such an obvious answer. Weak hadith can be used, right? For those who are just learning about this, we use weak hadith in everything except law.
Except law, 100%.
Right? Now,
and I think I don't know if you've covered this, but it's also we have people have to understand how these books were framed. The framing of all of these, the Sunan and all of that, was that even Adab al-Mufrad. Like I tell people, Imam Bukhari wrote Sahih. And then afterwards, you all of a sudden forgot how Sahih hadith works.
Yeah, subhanAllah.
Wow,
subhanAllah.
oh my God. He just like totally had dementia or something, and now he started putting da'if hadith, right?
Yeah.
No, it's that we probably didn't understand how to work with da'if hadith, right? And it's basically they would establish a particular context. They'll say, this thing, here's 1 or 2 Sahih hadith, this is established in our deen. Now let's add meat to that.
Yeah, the spices.
Spices,
Adab al-Mufrad is almost as if Bukhari's Sunan.
It is technically,
right? Where he admits and he goes into those extra chapters.
And
because the word Sunan, the book Sunan, when you say Sunan, it means that it starts off with some Sahih hadith, some sound hadith, then it adds the weaker ones as like to the garnish almost around
to add the flavor.
Yeah. But when Bukhari wrote a Sahih, he restricted his book only to the sound hadiths.
Yeah.
What you're saying...
And it was a legislative work too.
Exactly.
Right? The purpose was it's a legislative work.
It's a legislative work as how to live as a Muslim, and it's his ijtihad.
It is.
He, as you look at it, I like the analysis that Bukhari was his own madhab, his own mujtahid. Yes, he loved the Shafi'i usul of the ahad hadith, the sahih and ahad hadith, and he's doing ijtihad, and his opinion is in his selection of hadiths.
Or the titles of the chapters.
Ijtihad means he's his own law school of thought, essentially.
Yeah.
He doesn't follow anyone in a school of thought. But his methodology is close to Shafi.
Very close.
What you're saying is that a Muslim should have the habit, the routine of studying is far more important than finishing. Results, claims to have finished a book are a mirage and an illusion of knowledge. They are not knowledge. And hence, the routine nature of studying is truly what transforms us, not the completion element of things.
100%. That's what so many students, when they come back, Sheikh, they get that piece of paper and you know that they atrophy like no tomorrow.
Oh, that
right?
piece of paper
you were talking to the person and you're like, are you like us? Like, yeah, and I said, yeah, but like, you're not making sense. Like,
SubhanAllah.
We went so far and atrophied from that knowledge and environment because you've not kept up. You've not you forced yourself to do your own muraja'a, your own tadarus, your own readings, listening to mashayikh, right? Senior mashayikh, listening to some senior scholars, right? People, I already have an ijaz. I don't need to listen to this sheikh. I said, this sheikh is like 70 years old. Like he has 40 years more experience than you. You got to listen to him because you're not listening to him for ilm. You're listening to him for fawaid.
Yeah.
And it will take you 40 years to get.
And also, the true scholar that's reliable is somebody who has mulazama with the ulama to the point that you can tell the elders so-and-so and they'll know who he is, right?
Yeah.
That's what keeps us online, on track. Yeah, and in check. And mulazama is more important than ijazat and takharujat.
100%.
Right? The people who are always with the shiyukh, if one thing that they will have is caution.
Yeah.
Whereas sometimes someone who has degrees and he has ijazas can become bold, right?
Yeah.
And distant from the scholars, and your mind very slowly veers into a weird trajectory. And that piece of paper is, to me, it's one of the most dangerous things that happens to people. People ask me all the time, what do I get at the end of this? And I'm like, you're asking the wrong question. We are on a routine and a habit and a way of life of knowledge that will continue bi'idhnillahi ta'ala until we enter our graves. There's nothing to be had. This is the result. This is the goal. The continuity of living with knowledge and scholarship is the goal.
Yeah.
And that piece of paper, it's the process, not the destination. That piece of paper is a lot. It's your death, because you're basically killing the process. Yeah. You're saying the process is done with. And when people ask me, and they always ask me all the time in the classes that I give, what happens when I finish the cycle? We have a cycle, a 4-year cycle of the foundations of religion, right? Ulum al-Quran, ulum al-Hadith, Aqida, usul. We look at what the 4 madhabs are saying in usul so that people can make a decision. Things like that. Tasawwuf class, fiqh sirah. The fundamentals that to be a literate Muslim, okay?
Beautiful.
That you can be part of an organization. You could be a board member and you won't, be a royal disaster. Things like that. And they always say, what do I get at the end? I said, you want something for the end? I'll tell you what's going to happen. I'm going to open my MacBook. I'm going to type your name, make it fancy, send it to Staples, which is the print store. I'm going to go next door to Staples. There's a store called Michael's that sells overpriced picture frames. I'm going to go there. I'm going to frame it. I'm going to put it in a little paper bag. All right. Come home, put a ribbon on it, and then I'm going to present it to you. You happy? It's a certificate of completion. What does it do for you? Right? It's nothing. It's just a piece of paper. The process is what's important. And I'm telling you, people have finished my 4-year thing. Then they imagine that they finished. They didn't keep coming, right? And you may talk to them. It's all lost. It's all lost. So they confused discovery with ta'allum. So they discovered things. They discovered things, but they didn't learn them.
Yeah.
Because they can't even tell you.
I teach 5 days a week.
Subhanallah.
Because it has nothing to do with me teaching.
Yeah.
It has everything to do with me keeping myself in that process of coming at 4 o'clock and opening my computer, opening that PDF, reading that sharh. No matter how many times I've read it, right? Reading that sharh. I remember talking to my sheikh and I finished like Umdat al-Salik. And I was like, yeah. And I was like, yeah, sheikh, where's my jaza?
Subhanallah.
And sheikh was like, yeah, we're going to do it again.
Subhanallah.
That's I was like, no. I was like, no.
Yeah.
The sheikh is like, we're going to do it again. Yep. So at the end of the second one, I was like, yeah, sheikh.
Jaza.
And he's like, no, we're going to do it the 3rd time.
Allahu Akbar.
So he made me do Umdat al-Salik 4 times.
Amazing.
Right?
That's
at
amazing.
The end of it, he said, it's about tamakkun. That's the most important thing. If you want to master this book, so you never ever have to read any sharh. You open it, you understand it, right? But without muraja'ah, your tamakkun is going to be gone.
It's going to be very weak. Yeah,
it's going to be very
constant muraja'ah. It's sad when somebody stops teaching fiqh or aqeedah, and it's such a beautiful thing when an imam and an alim continues to teach into his retirement phase, his shaykhukh, not the shaykhukh, the shaybani phase they call it. The shaybani phase of an imam when he is a beyond veteran now. He's like a living legend, yet still. That's what I love. Sheikh Abdurrahman al-Shaghuri, the story about him, is that the government took over these industries, right? And they, in the name of socialism, and they said, okay, your pension is now going to come from the government. He's like, no, this money's haram. You stole. You literally the socialization of an industry means you literally stole a man's company, right?
Wow.
And I'm not working with you anymore because you're thieves.
Wow.
So he resigned and he refused the pension. So what did he do? He went and he signed up to be a Aqida teacher for youth.
Allahu Akbar.
And he woke up in the morning and goes to a school
Ajib.
as a sheikh, a shuyukh of Tasawwuf and of Aqida and of Ibn Arabi
Ajib.
in Damascus, honored scholar, all white beard, and he shows up to teach youth.
Allahu Akbar.
Sayyid Muhammad al-Alawi al-Maliki's father, Alawi ibn Abbas al-Maliki, was offered many, many times to become a professor in al-Qura. At the time it was like open to Asha'ira.
Yeah.
And he had, maybe it wasn't called al-Qura at the time. It was just whatever the college in Mecca. And he's in Mecca. He said, I prefer the youth. And he continued till his death, just teaching shabab the early mutun. He's like, because we want to set them on the right track. And that's a special skill in itself. And he would teach mutun to them. So we ask
some
Allah
days whenever we have
keep us
time,
up.
whenever we have time, I think it'll be really good for us to know how Ahsaa is keeping the tradition alive, because I think their model of education is something that we in America can really learn from, because they are producing around 600 to 700 lifelong students of knowledges every year.
Unbelievable.
But it's like it takes them from grade 5 until they graduate al-Jami'ah. And it's the sole progression of 2 days a week. And you know, one day, if we ever have time, I'll explain the whole process to you, because I think it's so much beneficial for Muslims to learn that it's not about, it's about 2 days a week, coming on a weekend, but then doing that for 4 is it just signing up your kid at grade 9 and let them come to a program for 2 days a week until grade 12 and see the difference.
SubhanAllah. That's amazing.
It's amazing. It'll change their perspective. That's
how to do it.
Everything, right? That's how to do it. It's not about sending them to Sunday school once a week for 1 hour and then khalas, check mark, I'm done.
It's just babysitting at that point. One thing we didn't do is we didn't tell everybody, where is Al-Ahsa. First of all, is it Al-Hasa or Al-Ahsa? Because I see both.
Yeah, it's Hasa. It's actually
Al-Hasa.
and I think it's Ahsa, right? But you know, the locals, they call it Hasa.
Hasa.
Okay, Hasa.
If you have, let's say you're familiar with the geography of Arabia, Medina is here, Mecca is here. Al-Hasa is actually a region.
Yeah.
With many cities in it.
Entire region, yeah.
It branches from Bahrain, passes Qatar as if you're drawing a rectangle in the direction of Yemen. Yeah. And it goes deep into Rub al-Khali too.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is the empty desert.
Yeah. Empty desert, yeah.
And so if you're in Mecca and you go east, you'll hit the bottom third of this region. If you're in Medina and you go east, you hit the top. Yeah. So it's a rectangle that is on the eastern part of Arabia, next to Riyadh. It's not too far from Riyadh.
3 hours from Riyadh.
Are they so many Sunnis there and Ash'aris there that the government just gives up on them?
Yeah, they're like, if'alu ma tasha. Yeah, they just do whatever. Like, you know, like, you know, my first experience was like we prayed Jum'ah in a masjid, and Masjid al-Jabri, which is a 600-year-old masjid, something phenomenal. By the way, the first Jum'ah that took place in the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam outside of Medina was in Hasa.
Ajib.
Right? There's a masjid there that they've actually cordoned off, and you know, they consider that masjid a very, you know, people go there for barakah, because this is like Rasulullah allowed a sahabi to lead the Jum'ah over there. So I remember, you know, somebody invited us for aqiqah, and it was like a full-on, like, I'm like, what's going on? They're reading and it was an experience, and I was like, you know, that was like my if he stayed, but I was like, I don't know if this is bid'ah. It's like I'm like, well, I think at the end of it, I'll get some good food. I'll sit around and I'll just, you know, like, it was a very early stages. It was really fun. But I think people need to, you know, chill out a bit.
Yeah. SubhanAllah. So if you're in Georgia, if you're in the Atlanta area, Masjid Hamza, it's right off of, what is this, Tildo Drive?
Windward Parkway, actually.
Windward Parkway.
Yeah, Tidwell. Tidwell is the road.
Tidwell. That's what I was reading. Tidwell Road. Okay, and there's the main area there is you're basically maybe 30-40 minutes outside of Atlanta itself.
Atlanta itself, like from the airport, it takes you 45 minutes if there's no traffic.
Okay,
an
good.
hour if there's traffic.
If you are someone who is in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, or you're in Bahrain, or you're in Qatar, or you're in the Emirates, you can take a quick drive. Bahrain, is there a bridge?
So Bahrain to Dammam is a bridge, and then you're gonna
Bahrain to Dammam, Khubar, and you drive down Route 5, Highway 5, and into Al-Hasa, or Qatar, straight
Salwa.
into.
You come from Salwa. You'll come from the Salwa road, Tariq Salwa.
Oh, Tariq Salwa. Yeah, I could see it here. Tariq Salwa. Okay, you're going to go in and you go up northeast into the northern part of Al-Hasa. And if you are in anywhere else, you can take Highway 95, Highway 10 into Al-Hasa.
Salwa is a white sand beach.
Ooh, nice.
If you ever, and there's absolutely nobody there. There were many times where we're just like, sometimes, you want to also have fun. So Sheikh is like, our class is canceled. I was like, oh, great. What do we do? So we would just, me and my brother would just like drive down Salwa, park our cars on the road, go in the sea. It would be the only one there in the sand
SubhanAllah.
Beach. Nobody is, and then just enjoy the weather and come back.
I'm surprised because Qatar, every time I open YouTube, I see an ad for Visit Qatar, and they're trying to make it a resort area now for Westerners to bring in,
this is on the other side, right? So this is on the Saudi side.
Oh, Salwa's on the Saudi side. Nice.
Yeah, Salwa's on the Saudi side. So anyhow, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah, mashallah. So that
we didn't get to the masjid politics.
We didn't get to masjid politics. We also didn't get to the jinn story. So let's do that.